boundaries are, I'm not available for these things. And then when you're very firm about it, then you say, I'm a kind person. I'm here to love you and support you, but these are the rules. And within this frame, and this is what I'm capable to do, and outside of this capabilities, I'm out. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Soulful Intuitive. Today, we are going to talk about boundaries. But before we start, I would like you to like, subscribe, and share if you haven't done that already. So the topic of boundaries is something that we hear about a lot these days. And it is a topic that maybe wasn't discussed as much when I was growing up. And as soon as you start seeing a therapist or taking a step into self-development, all of a sudden you're bombarded by that name and that word, boundaries. What are boundaries? What does it mean? And why are they so important? So I want to go back to when I was very young, probably my late teens, early 20s, and I had a dear friend of mine, a female friend, who has a very hyperactive personality, very smart, yet she has no boundaries. She has zero boundaries, not for herself and not for others. And we became each other's friends very fast, and maybe within like the 6 or 7 months after our friendship started, she started calling me at all times and asking me for all kinds of favors. For example, if she was out partying with her friends, or maybe she was at a bar having a drink, or 10 of them, she would call me at like 1 o'clock after midnight or 2 a.m. and she would ask for a ride. Or if she had a flat tire, she would give me a call at any time she wanted. Or if her friends wanted a ride, or if she wanted to move, or her friends wanted to move and they didn't have a car. And I just always would say, yes, yeah, I will come and help you out. And because I thought that's normal. It's normal to always say yes when people need you, especially someone you call a friend. And aside from these requests, she was very wonderful most of the time, until she kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And one day she caught me at a wrong time, and I was not having probably the best of days, and I basically said no. And she reacted severely. She didn't like that, and our friendship came to an end that day. And then later on in life, we ran into each other again and gave it another try. And but that was my very first encounter with just understanding what boundaries are. And back in the day, I didn't have a therapist, and it was difficult for me even saying no, because growing up, we were not taught to say no. Because if somebody asks you something like a favor, or if somebody wanted you to do something, whether it was a family member or a classmate, you always said yes. And the power of the word no was not even discussed. As a matter of fact, every time I said no for many years, I felt like I was being rude. I felt like I was being selfish. I felt like I was not being the best version of myself, because I was raised, like most of us out there, to be a good little boy or a good little girl and always say yes. So that was my example of understanding, or at least starting to understand, what boundaries were and what boundaries should do for you. And it wasn't something that I had to learn overnight. It took many, many years to even work up the courage to say no, because it's not always as black and white as a friend. It could be a boss. It could be a neighbor. It could be a classmate. It could be a lover. It could be a family member. And depending on your relationship with these people, it's not always that easy to say no and to have boundaries, especially because these relationships, especially family or romantic relationships, or even like, relationship outside of these two categories, people can manipulate you. So as soon as they sense that maybe you're about to not be available for what they want out of you, then they sprinkle a little guilt, or they sprinkle a little shame. And also because when you don't have boundaries, you also have exposed all that you are to these people, so they know exactly which buttons to push. For example, if you have abandonment issues, or if you have a soft heart, or if you're very empathic, or if you see someone even tearing up, all of a sudden you change your mind and you say, no, 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 I meant to say yes. No is not what I wanted to say. And many books, lots of just thinking on my own, and lots of just weighing in my own emotions. Like, how do I feel when I say yes, but I really want to say no? And what's my privacy like? And what am I getting out of these transactions? And why is it that there are some people in our lives whom we never ask anything from? And to tell you the truth, those people have very clear boundaries. And boundaries are like these invisible walls, these invisible communicators that, we all have people in our lives who have a lot of money. But how many of these people with money have given us the impression that we can go and ask for money, let's say, if we need some, or if we want to borrow, or if you even want to maybe have them co-sign something for us? So I had random strangers basically asking me to co-sign for my car and co-sign for my passport, and and then I have family members who have never had these encounters with other people because their boundaries are very clear. And I struggle with it, and I'm sure a lot of you guys also out there struggle with it too, because we somehow have managed to put having no boundaries and being a kind and helpful person in one sentence, which isn't even true, because sometimes you want to say yes, go ahead and say yes. But when you say yes over and over again, and you feel like there is this light inside of you that just keeps getting dimmer and dimmer and dimmer, then that should be a response loud enough for you to know that you're abusing yourself and somebody's overstepping your boundaries. And it is difficult to explain that, for example, to your friends whom you grew up with, or your family members, because the fact is that, for example, if your parents or your caregivers, they weren't taught the lesson of boundaries, it's very likely that they're not going to teach you what boundaries are, because they didn't have it to begin with. And boundaries, especially in like family situations, are very tricky, because let's say you love your brother, you love your sister, you love your niece and nephews, and maybe they call you anytime they have trouble, or maybe they want something. Anytime they want something, they call you, or they request things from you, and without even you giving any indication that you would want to go out of your way to help them. Because sometimes people can come to you and say, you know what, I want to buy a house, and I went to the bank and I'm this much short for my down payment, and I'm just trying to figure out what to do. Maybe I should take a second job, maybe I should take a third job, maybe I should sell my car. So they're problem solving in front of you, and then you can just offer and say, if you have the means, that, like, I have a little bit of money saved up, and I can lend you the money, and you can pay me back within this amount of time, or whatever arrangements you want to have. But if somebody just comes to you, can you give me money, or can you help me move, or can you just keep asking you things after things and request after requests. And meanwhile, you never ask them of anything. Then that just means that these boundaries don't exist there. And you feel obligated to be there and to say yes and to help, because let's say you're a helpful person. Let's say you want to be the best version of yourself, yet somehow you're betraying yourself because you know that, let's say, your mother has a sister whom you don't like. And if she wants to go to her house, she will want you to go with her. And when you sit in the presence of that lady, you are just miserable. And you explain yourself once, you explain yourself twice, that I don't want to be in front of that person. And yet the next time that your mom or your dad or your brother want to go visit the auntie from hell, they give you a call again. So that just means that your boundaries are being crossed. And then you feel bad to say, no, I don't want to come. As a matter of fact, don't ever ask me again. Because usually for people who have no boundaries or very weak boundaries, especially in family situations or in friendships, when you start putting up boundaries, there is a huge reaction. People are going to accuse you. You're not kind anymore. You're not the same person that I knew. You're not like, you used to be so different. What has happened to you? Like all kinds of accusations, because every time you want to change things, there's going to be opposition, because change is usually not welcome, because the structures, because the patterns are already established and people are used to that. Let's say, if you have someone who always pick up your slack, and like, let's say your partner always does all the dirty work around the house, the day that your partner comes and says, I'm not going to do this anymore. These are your dirty socks. You sleep on these sheets too. You make the garbage as well. And that's it. I'm not doing it. Then you are going to want to pick up a fight, or you just gonna like find a reason to retaliate or find something to like pick on and prove them wrong, because, well, guess what? Somebody's been doing your dirty work for you. And boundaries are exactly that. When people cross your boundaries, it means that they're not doing their own work. For example, let's say that friend of mine that I had to be very firm with and put up some clear boundaries when I was very, very young, she also had a habit of emotionally break down. And she would call me all the time when she was tearing up and she was upset. Let's say she had a fight with her boyfriend. Let's say she had a fight with her sister. Let's say she was just called a name on the street. And she would always call me under the guise of venting, or I just need someone to talk to, and throw up emotionally on me, take everything out. And then once she was feeling better, she literally would go, oh my God, I have another call. I'll talk to you later. And so now here I am sitting in my bedroom or wherever I was when I took her call, and I'm feeling so bad. I'm feeling so heavy. I'm feeling all of her negative feelings, because when people say I'm venting, what does venting mean? When you have a ventilator in your toilet and you turn it on, what does it do? It takes the smelly air out of your toilet and put it somewhere else. So when someone's venting to you, it means that they're taking their smelly shit and they put it right on you. Especially when you're a friend or a family member or someone who has bonds with these people, then you get to confuse their shit with your own shit. So one of the things you can do is ask yourself, is this my feelings? Is this my sadness? Is this my anger? Is this my anxiety? Because we're humans and we're all kind of connected. We're all one. So it's very difficult to love someone and have feelings for someone and have a relationship with them and separate their shit from your own. So back to my story from my early adulthood. I told this girl one day, I'm like, I want to know, how come you just call me when you want to vent, but you never call me when you're having a great time? You never call me when something amazing happened to you. You never call me to share laughter. You never call me to share an excitement. But I'm the sucker who gets the call when you're falling apart. And then because I don't have boundaries and because my role growing up was always to be at service and try to fix things, then I run to your help and I try to fix whatever it is that has fallen apart in your life, whether it's a relationship, whether it's like a job gone bad, whether it's just a friendship that went sour. And I'm here trying to like lift you up and dust you up and put you back in pieces. Well, that is a perfect example of having no boundaries. And it was one of the most difficult things that I have done in order to develop an ability to see where I am abusing myself by not being able to say no and not creating that invisible wall so people just don't feel like it's okay to come and open my door and throw their shit inside of my house and then leave because now they feel lighter and better. As a matter of fact, we all have to develop skills in order to evaluate and process our own feelings. And that is what responsible adults do. So that's why you go to therapy, because when you go to the therapist is not your cousin or your aunt or your mom and dad. The therapist has been trained for many years. That's why they charge the big bucks. And they listen to you and they don't mistake your trauma and your pain and your issues with theirs. So they listen to you and then they're able to turn the mirror around or just give you pointers at, oh, well, you know what? Here, this is what went wrong. And here, this is what you can do in order to process your anger, process your frustration, process your fear, process your sadness. Instead, if you want to just like anytime you felt overwhelmed with a feeling or overwhelmed with something and call that person who doesn't have the boundaries, because we all know there are people in our life that we don't ever dare to call or to even ask them for anything because these people have walls this thick that you don't dare to ask. And they could be your mother, they could be your father, they could be your neighbor, but you know exactly who they are. You don't ever give them a call. You don't ever do anything because they have created a very visible yet invisible wall of don't you dare come and throw your shit at me. And this is what boundaries are. So if you have a neighbor, for example, who keeps coming to you whenever they're, running low on something or whenever they need help with moving something, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't be helpful, but how come that neighbor never goes to the other side? Because you don't have boundaries. So they have no problem. I lived in this place a while ago, and every time that I was making smoothie for myself, this person would just come back, knock on my door and say, where is mine? The first time and the second time and the third time was cute. And then afterwards, it was annoying because then I wouldn't make a smoothie for myself if I didn't have enough to offer it to the whole neighborhood because, well, sometimes you just have one banana and a little bit of almond milk left. And I knew that this person would come. So got to the point where I would just not have my smoothie because apparently my boundary wasn't clear enough. And so these are all the things that, it happens and could be something that is happening to you as we speak or something that happens to you from every now and then. But the more you practice having boundaries, the more you practice kindness when you are setting up boundaries. Because in the beginning, I used to get so angry. So I was able to use that anger in order to push my boundary up. But that's too late when they have pushed you and pushed you and pushed you until you're already angry. Because you know what they're going to say? Because they're going to read your anger as an act of aggression and say, see, you're crazy. But they're not going to hear what you're saying, that don't take me for granted or respect my boundaries is more like it. So let's just be very aware of when is it that our boundaries are violated? How does it feel when our boundaries are violated? Does it give us anxiety? Does it make us angry? Does it kind of make you feel like you're being drained out of your energy when people do that, and then you need a lot of alone time in order to recharge and get over it? So read your feelings and then listen to your heart. and come up with a very kind plan on your own, or put your hands on a bunch of books, go on YouTube and listen to some videos on boundaries, or maybe if you have a therapist, talk to your therapist and start practicing this version of yourself that has boundaries. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. And when it becomes part of your routine and part of your personality, just like anything else, then people will see it before even you have to tell them these are my boundaries, or before you have to explain to them that they're violating your boundaries, because it is an energy field. The boundary is an energy field. And anytime that you forgot about it, just think about that one person or two people in your office or in your household, in your neighborhood, that you never dare to ask for anything. You never call to vent. You never pour your heart out to them, because you know they're not available. And that's what boundaries are. Boundaries are, I'm not available for these things. And then when you're very firm about it, then you say, you know, I'm a kind person. I'm here to love you and support you, but these are the rules. And within this frame, and this is what I'm capable to do, and outside of this capabilities, I'm out. I don't have anything to give you, because that's not me being fair to myself, because I need to put my own oxygen mask on before I can help you. So that's it for today. That was a shorter video, but nonetheless a very important one on boundaries. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I will talk to you very soon. Thank you very much, and have a good day.